Let's be real for a second. Today's applications are, well, they're all over the place. They're running on infrastructure we don't own, crossing networks we definitely don't control. But guess what? We're still the ones on the hook for the end user's digital experience. And that creates this massive visibility gap. That's the exact problem we're going to tackle. We're going to break down how Cisco ThousandEyes gives you a map through all this complexity, letting you finally see every single step of that digital journey. So here's the plan. First, we'll dig into the core problem, what we call the digital experience blind spot. Then, we'll introduce ThousandEyes and look at how it's built to solve that problem. We'll explore the specific kinds of tests it can run, and then we'll wrap it all up with its true superpower, bringing unbelievable clarity to complex SD-WAN environments. All right, let's jump right in with that first point. What exactly is this digital blind spot that's giving so many IT teams such a headache?
You know the feeling, right? It's the question that keeps network operators up at night. Every single one of your dashboards is lit up green. Your circuits are fine. Everything looks perfect. And yet, the help desk is blowing up with users complaining that Microsoft 365 or Salesforce is crawling or just completely down. You're stuck in that awful loop, trying to prove the network is innocent, but you've got no data, no evidence to show where the problem actually is.
The thing is, the modern company runs on a digital supply chain that is incredibly complex. You're depending on software as a service apps, infrastructure as a service from cloud providers like AWS or Azure, and of course the Wild West of the public internet to connect everything. And every single one of those pieces, it's a black box. This creates that huge visibility gap we talked about. So when something breaks, trying to find the real root cause feels, well, pretty much impossible. So how do you fix this? The whole idea is to stop guessing and move to a clear, proactive workflow that's based on actual evidence. First, you evaluate performance all the time, so you know what good actually looks like. Next, when something goes wrong, you pinpoint the issue, using that end-to-end data as proof. And then, and only then, you escalate with total confidence, because you're armed with data that shows exactly whose problem it is, whether it's an ISP, a SaaS provider, or your own app team. And that, right there, brings us to the tool designed specifically to close that visibility gap and make that whole workflow a reality. You know, this quote really gets to the heart of what ThousandEyes is all about. It's built to give IT and network teams the power to see every single piece of the network, from the user's laptop all the way to the application, no matter who owns it. It basically lets you reclaim control and visibility over all that infrastructure you now depend on but don't own. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, right? But how does it actually work? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the architecture that makes all this visibility possible. The entire system is built around this idea of vantage points. It uses these different types of agents, which are really just small, lightweight software probes to constantly run tests. These tests are actively measuring performance from the user to the application, and they collect all this critical data along the entire path. We're talking everything from app performance down to network connectivity. First up, we've got cloud agents. Now, think of these as your global eyes and ears. ThousandEyes manages them for you in data centers and ISP networks all over the planet. They give you that outside-in view. So you want to know how your website is performing for users in London or Tokyo? Easy. You just tell a cloud agent in those locations to run a test. Next up are the enterprise agents. So if cloud agents are the outside world looking in, enterprise agents are the inside-out perspective. These are the same little software agents, but you deploy them inside your environment, in your data centers, your branch offices, even inside your cloud VPCs in AWS. They measure performance from your critical locations out to the services everyone is trying to use. And finally, we have endpoint agents. And honestly, in today's work-from-anywhere world, these are an absolute game changer. They're basically a browser plugin or a little service that you install right on your users' laptops. This gives you insane visibility into the last mile. We're talking their home Wi-Fi, their local ISP, their VPN connection. You can finally see exactly what the user is actually experiencing. Okay, so we've got all these agents deployed and all these different vantage points. What can we actually do with them? Let's look at the kinds of tests that bring all this data to life. And when you look at this, you can see just how deep it goes. This is not just a simple ping tool. ThousandEyes works across the whole stack. Down at the network layer, you can test any IP and get hop-by-hop metrics. Up at the web layer, you can simulate a real browser loading your page, or even script a complex user journey like logging in and adding something to a cart. It can even test voice quality and hunt down DNS problems. It's really the whole shebang. So to put this in real-world terms, a network test answers the basic question, can I even get there and what's the path? A page load test asks, how painful is it for a user in Tokyo to load our website? And a transaction test, which is so critical for business, answers the question, can people actually log in and buy stuff on our site? All right, now for what I think is the real superpower here. Let's see how all these pieces, the agents, the tests, come together to do something truly amazing, especially for anyone running a Cisco SD-WAN fabric.
Now, to really get this, we have to understand two super important terms: overlay and underlay. Think of it like this. The overlay is the nice, smooth, logical highway tunnel that you build with SD-WAN. The underlay? Well, that's the actual ground underneath. The public internet, the MPLS circuits, the messy physical terrain that your highway is built on top of.
And here is the absolute key difference. You, the network team, you control the overlay. You build the highway, but you have zero control and traditionally zero visibility into the underlay. And that's where the problems love to hide. So if your ISP has an issue, if a sinkhole opens up in that underlay, your perfect highway gets a massive crack in it, and you're left completely in the dark as to why. And this is where ThousandEyes just completely changes the game. By putting an enterprise agent right on the SD-WAN router, it basically gets X-ray vision. It can see through your overlay tunnel and map out the entire hop-by-hop path across the ISP's network, the underlay. You see every router, every link, and exactly where latency is creeping in. But just seeing the underlay is only half the story. The real magic happens when it brings it all together. ThousandEyes doesn't just show you that physical path. It also shows you the performance of your logical overlay tunnel right on top of it. You get this single, beautiful, correlated view of your SD-WAN fabric's health and the physical path it depends on. This correlated view, that is the superpower. When a user at a branch office complains an app is slow, the guessing game is over. Done. You look at one screen and you instantly know the answer. Is the problem in my SD-WAN fabric? Or is it 3 hops deep inside my service provider's network? The blame game stops, and troubleshooting time just plummets from days to minutes. And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. This isn't just about fixing things faster. It's about a fundamental shift in how IT can operate. So just think about it. If you could see every network, every hop between your user and their application, how would that change the way you operate? How would it change your cloud strategy? It's about way more than just fixing problems. It's about being able to truly engineer and guarantee a flawless digital experience for everyone.